Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joined today, he's a real estate entrepreneur and the co-founder of One Life Rediscover Mastermind. It's Sterling Shrout. How are you doing today, Sterling?
Great, Alex. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what were you involved in growing up?
Yeah, so I'm from Dayton, Ohio, middle schoolish, area. I moved out to Montana. Growing up, I loved hunting, fishing, anything outdoors. I still do. Moved back to Ohio, and here I still am.
There's probably a big difference between Ohio and Montana. It's two different complete places. You talked about hunting and stuff and the outdoors. What made you like about those activities and being outdoors?
That's just somewhere I felt like present. I felt like that was right. That was, all was right in the world when I'm out just exploring. And I kill a lot less animals these days, but I just appreciate them now. But that was fulfilling. There was like purpose in that, or a sense of that feeling. So.
Was there someone that you enjoyed doing those activities with, or someone that kind of influenced you to get going in hunting and stuff like that?
Hunting, fishing, that would be my dad, my grandpa. My dad would take me fishing. My mom would take me fishing. But when you live in Montana in the middle of nowhere, and it's like that's all you're surrounded by, plus it's you got deer, elk, moose, coyotes, wolves, bison. Like, we weren't too far from Yellowstone. Trout, like when that stuff's around, it's you just want to find it, and you're like, I don't know, it's tempting. It's like my thing still is salmon fishing. We went like 3 times over the last year and a half.
Wow.
So yeah.
Living in Montana and kind of that rural lifestyle, was it hard to be interactive, or did you feel more like a solo because you were doing those kind of things and not getting out as much?
So because I wasn't born into that, or moved there at like too young of an age to remember Ohio, I went from a really high population like Dayton, Ohio, to I believe it was like 7,000 people in the town that I lived in Montana. And that was a decent sized town. We had a Burger King. And so like thinking, though I didn't really know how to perceive it. That's a big shift, culturally, geographically, everything, because there was no family members out there. So I didn't, looking back, that's probably the best thing that could have happened to me. But at that time, just getting into that like preteen, teenage years, I kind of, at first I was a victim of it before I embraced it. And then, like I said, dove into hunting and fishing and trapping and camping and mountain hiking and, all that.
As you're getting older, what were you enjoying? Were you finding other things that kind of got your a passion in your mind, or things that you wanted to enjoy besides those previous activities?
Yeah, so like the not so fun side of it was once my mom and her boyfriend had split up out there, then it was me and her, and we were extremely poor, and I guess this is like leading into the Great Recession era. So not having many financial means growing up, and that was my entire life. Like, I was born in a trailer park and everything else. That bothered me, and then I wanted to make money, and I really I don't think I give enough credit to the movie Blow with Johnny Depp, like where like idolizes drug trafficking, and I could probably quote too many lines from that movie. But that was like, oh well, that's how you change your situation. Like I remember getting like 9th grade, I was growing pot in my room, and behind my door, I thought it was really slick. Like if she opened the door, she wouldn't see it, and told her it was mint. She wasn't buying it. So That was like the first thing. Then I tried to then I broke down the numbers for it. I'm like, look, we need to, you just let this go. Let me grow this many plants. This is how much you get. This is how much it's worth. This is what you can do with it. And that was at like freaking 15. But anyways, obviously I didn't just like come up with a bunch of pot seeds on my own out of nowhere. I started hanging out with the other kids who were at the same economic level as me, but like me being new also, it's harder to get into the friend groups that are super well established. It's kind of the outsiders that are like, you know, you're willing to do some crazy stuff. You like to smoke weed, hang out with us. And so nothing against those kids personally. It's just that's kind of the people I started to hang out with, and then the trouble starts.
Was the idea is trying to get money as quickly as possible, and a lot of it, instead of like at 15, sometimes you can work at like a fast food place or a grocery store and things like that, but it might take a lot longer to make a certain amount of money?
Yeah. So I mean, it was that same time period. I had my first job out there at 14, $5 an hour cash under the table at a greenhouse, watering plants, and I would get pimped out to little old ladies to go dig up their gardens and plant their plants for them and stuff. And after that, it was Pizza Hut and just I mean, I stayed working, but like the results I saw from that and like the amount of money my mom made working full time, it's like that this is not the way, or there has to be a different way. I didn't have any influences, at least that I recognized, or any people that I saw what they were doing and looked up to and wanted to learn more. So that's kind of where just obviously quick, easy money is alluring. You don't think about the long-term consequences or the penalties.
Did you feel that the things that you were getting involved with was dangerous and that there's a lot of risk involved?
I mean, I definitely knew there was risk, because in a small town like that, it was like cops and robbers every weekend with like the high school kids drinking and the cops trying to bust us drinking. And so you have that sense of sneaking around or getting away with stuff, but I didn't actually understand the actual legal consequences and the how would you even word that, the blocks in motion or the things that sets in motion. That's a lot to grasp, especially for somebody who's naive or young in the world. So
did you ever have those moments where like cops coming by, this could be the end, like I don't know if I'm gonna make it the next day? Or
not out there in Montana. When I got back to Ohio, it got way crazier. Out there in Montana, I got at 15, I got arrested with a pound of pot, and then I had a bunch of guns, but that was more hunting guns. There was no gangster aspect to it. There was no, like I'm going to use this on a person. It was strictly hunting, whatever. You'll get the contrast here in a little bit. But then that pound of pot, 15 years old, they wanted to try me as an adult with like prison time and things like that. And I got lucky and just got sentenced to probation until I was 21. And that kind of opened my mind to like, holy crap, these guys are something's up here. Like, yeah.
What was like after you get that probation decision, did you feel like I need to get out of dealing with drugs and kind of start new in a way and find a different path, not hang out with the same people and things like that?
No, just stone cold no. I wish I could lie and tell you, or I wish I could tell you something better, but that would be a lie. So I don't know, I was dumb and a teenager, and made really bad decisions. Like, it's horrible to be so blunt about it, but I barely recognized it as a problem then. And this is what the mentality I was going to get into, but like, it was still like us versus them, or me versus them, or like the cops are the enemy, or the whatever. So yeah, it was hang out with the same people, try to smoke as much pot as possible, without getting busted by my probation officer. Like I was a juvenile delinquent, I guess. That's the best way to word it.
Did your mom get upset that the decisions that you were making, because before you were hiding it from her, but now you have these legal cases going, and now it's like you got to confront what she thinks?
Yeah. Yeah, she had a really hard time with it. So something I kind of skipped over was the religious background. So I grew up Jehovah's Witness. My mom was basically born into it. I think she was a couple years old, like 2 or 3, when my grandparents joined. And so that's a very separate group from the rest of, society. Like, you still function within society, but you don't associate. You're in the world, not of it, and things like that. So we had a really big disconnect there, because I felt like everything I was told growing up, like I was lied to. Like, you guys told me, like, psychedelics are horrible. You're going to die the first time you try them, and drugs are bad, and all these people outside of the church are bad. And so I was really lost, I guess. And then, that point of reference, or what most people should have as a homing beacon, or something like a foundation. That foundation was kind of broken at that time, while she was still figuring out her life of just leaving that same organization. So yeah, it was a little rocky time. But yeah, she tried like heck to get me to stop all the stupid stuff I was doing. So.
Do you think that if she was able to get you to stop, that maybe the path leading to what's next could have been completely different? Or did you feel that you had everything going and you didn't want to stop living that kind of lifestyle?
I hadn't seen anybody super successful. The people I worked with, ended up getting off probation at 18, and then very shortly after, moving back to Ohio. But in Montana, the people I worked with making $10 an hour at the fiberglass factory, huffing fiberglass resins and whatever. Outside of the foreman or the boss, there wasn't too many good examples of people to look up to. The kids my age, they were going to college, or they played sports, or they had activities, like healthy activities. And at that point, I'm no longer allowed to shoot guns, so I lost my hunting there. I could still fish, or bow hunt. So I think not having any role models really shaped why that was my normal. Like, that was my everyday. Like, it's like, I don't understand why you don't smoke drugs, or why you don't use drugs, or so it's still really early in the game here, as far as the progression of things. It still is. I'm 31, but yeah, it was not having something like to look at that wasn't one extreme or the other. So
Did you have a dream job that you were wanting? Like, say you had drugs wasn't a thing at all, that you were going to college and things like that. Did you have a path that you were hoping to go for?
the best thing that I knew to do, and I remember this pretty vividly, was just learn a trade. Learn a trade, then you can make enough money to survive, and have a little bit extra. That was kind of the best plan that I had for years. All through high school, it took all 4 years of vocational agriculture, which taught you more than farming, welding, all these other things. But like being in that small town, like being a pipe fitter for the refinery in the town was like, the ace job to have. That was the people with the new cars and the new, sports cars or whatever. Besides that, I didn't really have a passion or like a direction that, I had put a ton of energy into. Now.
You mentioned after when you were 18, you got off probation. What was next for you? What were you going to do? Things like that. Where was the path leading towards?
Definitely catching another felony. That's where that path was going. So I'd quit selling drugs, while I was in Montana, but just still drinking underage and smoking pot. And I think I took a trip cross country to pick mushrooms in Oregon and bring those back because you couldn't find them. Like just ridiculous stuff that, normal people like shake their head at. Like, that sorry, I got lost. I told you I'd try to stay out of the weeds here. Can we start that part over, or
You can
rephrase
continue.
the question? Oh,
Yeah.
it just start.
So after 18, what was that next path for you? You got off the probation, but what was the path leading towards next?
Okay. So when I got off probation at 18, that was just a loophole that I had found. If I stayed in high school and graduated, I would have been transferred to adult probation. If I dropped out and got my GED, I could get off probation at like the day I turned 18 or the day before I turned 18. So as soon as that happened, now I'm free, from supervision, community supervision. My mom had wanted to move back to Ohio at that point. That would have been my last family member there. I was not in a position to stand on my own 2 feet there. So I came back to Ohio with her. Also because I don't remember what it was specifically, but let's say I had gotten some minor paraphernalia charge or something like that, and I was like, screw that, I'm out. And left and came back to Ohio. So that's where that path leads after getting off probation. And I can go further if you'd like.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. So the same kids that I was in elementary and middle school with, I moved back to Ohio. I had kept in somewhat loose contact with them. I think MySpace was a thing then. Yeah. I knew where one of my friends lived, and I went to see them, and just, the only people I really remembered from growing up here or from when I lived here. Well, sure enough, they all sell weed. I'm like, oh, hey, I know this game. We're gonna get along great. So basically, it led right back to where I left off in Montana, except for there's a lot more people, there's a lot more access, and there's a lot going on in Ohio. So, yeah.
Do you feel if you had a different mindset that maybe that it wouldn't tempt you as much? Because just by hearing your story, when you moved, it was going to be maybe a fresh start, but then you reached out to those friends, but then they're kind of having that same impact where anywhere you went, if there was drugs involved, it kind of sucked you right back into the past and kind of going into that dangerous route. Do you think if you had maybe a different mindset that you wouldn't get into that loop?
Yeah, the mindset for sure, but if I had different relationships, I really strongly believe that like you are who you hang out with, like you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. And so like time and time again. I kind of left out the details because he's a great human. He just had some alcohol issues, like my mom's boyfriend, fiance out there in Montana, alcoholic on parole. Just so happens I end up, on drugs, on probation, then eventually parole, and back to Ohio. Now the only people that I have any prior relationship with, they're selling drugs, partying. When you like fast forward now, just real briefly, my friends are my old bosses and like people that I looked up to, and I don't know if by doing better you attract the right people into your life. But I don't know. I do know that, but back then I really didn't have a direction to go. And when you don't have a direction to go, or you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do type thing. So
getting back with those friends and coming back to Ohio, did it ever get to the legal stuff? Did you get another felony? Did you get more probation, things like that? Or did you kind of escape away from it?
Yeah, you could say that I got in a little bit of trouble. No, so I got back to Ohio at 18. It within months, I like fully embrace now that like the way my mind works, everything. I'm an entrepreneur. Like I like creating things. I like challenges and solving problems and coordinating things. So I very quickly overtook all of my friends as far as then I became their supplier. Or at a higher level than them. I feel like if you say it that way, it's like a RICO charge or something. Nobody wants those problems. So I already served my time. I was very entrepreneurial. I just didn't know how to direct it. And the one thing I did know was drug trafficking. So they were selling pot. I started selling pot. So I was selling more pot than them, and to them, like whatever, to everybody. And then I escalated to ecstasy, MDMA. The technical drug was piperazine, which is like a knockoff or something, or a whatever. Doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant. So I think I lasted an entire year and a half before the Allied Combined, or the ACE Task Force, the Allied Combined Enforcement, and the tobacco, firearms people, whatever their group's called, ATF, yeah, there it is, kick in my door, raid me. I had been selling to somebody who was wearing a wire, sold him 405 ecstasy pills. I got some insane charges initially, like engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, for running a drug ring, and then like felony, like the highest level felonies for drug trafficking and things like that. That's enough trouble to make you kind of rethink what you're doing. The probation at 15 didn't really register. I was facing like 63 years in prison if they maxed out those initial charges. I had dynamite, and yet again, not for like crazy like hurt people reasons. It's like, well, I just came from Montana, and like I would love to blow up a washing machine at a junkyard. Like that would be freaking cool. I did have an AK-47 and drum clips and all that stuff because I could afford it from the proceeds of my ridiculous choices. Didn't get better. I ended up serving 3 years. I pled it down to 3 years, mandatory, right after my 5 days after my 20th birthday. So I was out for 18 and 19, and then 20 to 23 I was locked up in prison. And let's go into the mindset of that if you want.
Yeah, talk about that. And what's the biggest thing you learned about yourself going through those 3 years?
So yeah, all right. So for a 20-year-old who's foundation mentally is like drug trafficking and like that stuff's normal. That's your everyday. Like kind of like we'll get into, I don't know how much time you have, but it doesn't get better for a while. So, that's your normal. Well, you go into prison at 20, you're still really influential at 20, or easily influenced. And luckily there was a lot of people I didn't want to be like, but then you also meet people that's like, well, he's pretty cool and he's in prison, and whatever. The whole way that the prison system, at least here in Ohio, is set up is more of like a human warehousing, but with systems put in place to extract money from your family, instead of like rehabilitate and maybe say give you a skill or something that when you reintegrate into society you can use to support yourself, stand on your own 2 feet, and like give something back to your community, to your town, your society, whatever. So it was, and it still was, like us against them, the COs versus the inmates, and being able to watch, like they shake up your routine, they do all these things to keep you unstable or like easily controlled, basically. They'll come in with their show of force with the SRTs and just do drills and strip you all naked next to each other. And like even the intake process was ridiculous. Like I was literally naked in a room with like 10 other guys with no light, like a YMCA shower area, for hours and hours. Like they do these little things to break you down to show that they're in control, whatever. And I've kind of always been like strong-willed, I guess. Maybe you see that, or I don't learn quick, or I don't learn the bad stuff. I'm joking. So while being in there, you have the influence of, like I'm not Sterling Shrout in there. I was inmate 639206. You're property of the state. You're not a person. So like you take somebody who already has self-esteem, potentially self-esteem issues, and potentially like these other emotional or self-worth, especially things, and it's like just knock that down a couple more levels, and then it's inmate against inmate, but not like we fight every day. You got 3 years. If you don't like somebody and they're in there for 5 and you're in there for 3 and whatever, you're playing a long game. So it is like a strategic mental thing. You can see these, like you could see people lay traps 6 months in advance for somebody else. And like it sharpened my social skills or my people skills. I can never remember the term. But yeah, my emotional intelligence, my social skills, yeah, whatever. Yeah, it honed that very fine, especially being a young white kid. And it was like a majority Black prison. Of course, there was fighting. Of course, things happened. But I was always really against that system itself, and like still fighting that and not working on myself. I wasn't like fixing the real issue. I was still distracted by that life in there. So
Do you think if you went in at a younger age, it would maybe have been a big eye opener? Or do you feel that you went in at the right time and when you got out, it was like kind of like, okay, I learned my lesson. I need to focus on myself and getting better?
So the thing I focused on in there, I think the timing was right. Like now, I wouldn't change any of it, honestly. And I'm trying to talk like as openly and honestly as possible
Yeah.
with all this. And I'm just trying to also put myself in the mindset at that point in time. So, bear with it. Um, yeah, I don't regret any of it now. I think it was the right time. But like me working on myself in there was exercising every day, was going to the gym every day, and getting in the best physical shape I could be in. And there, that was where I would find self-worth. That's kind of a deterrent, somebody that's physically strong, physically active. Like if you're going to take something from somebody, are you going to take it from the weak person who's probably not going to defend themselves, or even if they try their best, it's not going to be as much of a fight as this guy. So my main focus in there was, exercise and strength training and alliances, and like it's off the chain. It's nuts in there. It was not getting educated. It was not. I did make attempts. They had programs that the wait lists were longer than I was in there for any of the ones that actually led to a career with like a demand. I did become a certified dog trainer while I was in there. I managed to keep a puppy for a while, or puppies, and train them for kids who have disabilities. So you teach them to nuzzle, and you teach them, you're basically potty training them at that, at that real low level stuff. But just, basic commands and walking with you and not pulling and stuff like that. So I was unable to use that certification upon release. So.
Well, if you ever got a dog, you'd be able to know how to train the dog.
Oh yeah, I'm excellent with dogs. He's down here just hanging out, my golden doodle. And surprisingly, like the basics of dog training and the basics of kid training, or raising kids, or however you look at life, consistency, man. That's the key to both. So
going past your time with drugs and alcohol and things like that, talk about getting into that entrepreneurial mind. How did you know what career you wanted? Because you can't go back to that lifestyle, but you got to be able to make money so you can afford things and things like that. Talk about that journey and being able to create something, a job for yourself and things like that.
Yeah, so I'll just barely like skim the top of the water of this stuff and get into that. Getting out of prison with no skills. I'm 23 years old with, all my charges started with aggravated trafficking or possession of dangerous ordnance, or things like that. That's not really good on a resume or a background check. There was a specific point when I got out, and I was trying, because screw prison, I never want to go back. I had given up on that like last little bit of self-esteem that I had, and I was like, and nothing against people that work at fast food, but I was like, I'll go get a job at Chipotle. Like, they have to hire me. It's fast food. They don't care about your background. Sure enough, they do. And so after applying, they're like, no, we can't hire you. You're, whatever, dangerous this and aggravated that. Like, all right. But apparently after reading those charges, the guy like gave me a burrito. He's like, he felt really bad. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm not violent, like, I swear. So anyways, yeah, after that, it was like, oh, well, society doesn't care that like I did every day of my time. Yeah, my mom cared. She loves me. And, there's a few people that, didn't think differently of me. But my options were now extremely limited as far as work. So it was Craigslist work, it was handyman work, it was drywall, painting, construction, labor. So I went into that, and like hardcore drug addiction, because that's how I coped with that feeling of rejection from society, and that feeling of like shame that like I'm not able to provide for myself. I still have to live at my mom's at 23, 24, 25. And so I picked up skills along the way that like led me to where I am now. Multiple attempts of rehab and trying to get better and just like not go back to prison. That was a really big goal. Still is. We'll always be.
Yeah.
Um, so basically over, 23 to 28 and a half, I fight this drug addiction and try to get better. I'm able to for little stints at a time. I had like 2 years sober at one point, relapse. But like after going to the Salvation Army rehab in Florida, I saw people there, and this goes back to kind of that mentors I didn't have or relationships. I saw people there from situations like I came from who had stuff, who had their lives together, whose lives weren't chaos, and like they didn't have to worry about, um, whatever, choosing between what bills to pay or like that level of economic distress. So that was kind of where I saw that it was possible. And, getting sober and taking that time to work on myself, and like really deal with the issues that I'd never dealt with. Even after that relapse, the times of relapsing got smaller and smaller and smaller, like, because I knew I didn't want to live this way. I knew it's just, I didn't know how or what to, or how that would work out yet. That culminates in a Taco Bell drive-through at the order window, overdosing with said dog with me. He went to jail too, guilty by association or whatever, but he went to dog jail. No, that was a short relapse, man. That was like a week I'd been sober. My son was, I just had a son. He was about 6 months old. I was doing pretty good, and then just slipped up and accidental overdose. But it was that's what like shook me to my core. That's what, it's a weird feeling to describe. Like I wasn't scared. I wasn't even upset necessarily. Like I knew like I had a truth. I had like a fundamental truth. I don't want to die. Like that, point blank. It was a pretty savage overdose. I came back at the hospital and whatever. Yeah, if I die, all this stuff, I've done so good with not cussing.
Oh, if you do, it's okay. It's nowhere.
I was so proud of myself. All this like suffering and stuff that I've been through, and like misery and just whatever, self-inflicted, not self-inflicted, whatever. My son's like guaranteed that, not all, but guaranteed that, I should say. I'm leaving him with his mom, who is also in addiction prior, and like he's not going to stand a chance without me here. And now knowing that I don't want to die because I really enjoy being alive, thoroughly enjoy being alive. It's like, if I'm going to be alive, then I need to figure out how to like make it sustainable and how to whatever, make something of it. And that was a weird feeling. I don't know if it was like a near-death experience, awakening or something like that shook that in me. But after that point, I didn't ever really have the urge to use again. I've never since. But prior to that, I had also, I wasn't hanging out with the same people, so I didn't like go from the overdose right back into my whole friend circle as drug users or whatever. I had cut myself off from those people, and I had been working for this for a guy doing handyman stuff. I replied to a Craigslist ad for debris removal, and we started to build a relationship. He kind of saw something in me that I didn't, and I didn't recognize that, at the time, that that's what he was doing. But he was paying me to learn. Like he saw something in me to where, like, whatever it was, he kept like challenging me and like I'm doing everything from, pouring chimney caps, tuck pointing chimneys, to I built a self-storage facility for him, like literally by myself, out of an old machine shop. Anything it was, he would pay me to go. He would pay me to watch videos on it, to read about it. Because ultimately, I'm sure it was cheaper too, hiring the right person. No, but he was an entrepreneur. He's a pilot in the Air Force Reserves, and I looked up to him. And it wasn't that I looked up to him because of his. I hope he gets to watch this, because of his golf course mansion. That I spent more time working on that than I did, I think, living at my house. But it was that he would talk to me about things. If I had questions, he would answer them. He would elaborate on them. And I think, once he saw me starting to ask, at first I asked him, I forget the exact question, but he asked me why I wanted to know that, and it threw him off. And I don't think he expected me to have thought about how the, finances work with something, or how the business structure works, or whatever. But the self-storage thing, he just kind of let me run with it. I designed everything. We had an architect draw it up, but I was whatever. I did the whole layout, I did the security, I did the automation, front to back. And that was cool that I got that opportunity to do that. It's while I made $15 an hour doing it, and he got a business, he had the money to do it. So it showed me that I could do something. And that was the first thing I'd really accomplished. I built a business for somebody else, even if it was their idea. I still, saw it, put it together, and it worked. And so from there, it kind of takes off a little bit.
At this stage, was this the first time you felt confident in something, like positive reassurance and things like that?
Yeah, I had never finished something start to finish, let alone kept a job with somebody. I always screwed that up. And my timeline's a little bit off. I worked for him after the overdose, because when that happened, I took a day off or something, came to work the next day. And by work, I mean, I went to his house to work on something for him. And when I told him about it, this dude that I looked up to, I'm this guy's, brilliant and whatever, has stuff that I want, or traits that I want. He actually cried, and I was casual about it. I told him what happened, and he got upset, and I was oh, I didn't expect that. I thought it just worked for you, and he was that, and that makes me kind of feel some emotion. But I didn't think anybody saw value in me up until that point. When seeing somebody that you look up to, show you that they value you more than just the, whatever labor you provide them. So that was one of the first real impactful relationships. Let's stay off topic, but go ahead.
You're good. No worries. Looking now at your sobriety and recovery, how has that journey been, especially during these tough times where a lot of people maybe could been tempted through the pandemic and things like that? Did you find that you were being strong for your family and you wanted to just continue doing the things that you love and not be able to be tempted again?
Yeah. So, timing was on my side. This was prior to the pandemic that I had overdosed. But it wasn't until Christmas Eve, literally, that I heard my first podcast, and I found out how much you can learn online with podcasts like these, and audio books, and self-education. So when the pandemic hit, I had already developed this enjoyment of responsibility. I wasn't crushing it by any means. I'm sure I was in debt, and I was a renter, and I didn't have, whatever. But my family was taken care of. Like I got up and did what needed to be done, and had built that routine. So when the pandemic hit and I didn't have to go anywhere necessarily, and it shut me off from a bunch of distractions, I dove in even harder. Like I got more time for audiobooks, I got more time for podcasts. And that first year, 60 something audiobooks. And then I know 400 podcast episodes of one specific one. But there was others I was listening to as well. But those became like my mentors and my the people I looked up to, my relationships. Like that was the self-talk in my head. That was a massive influence. So even though I was isolated from, everybody was isolated from each other, I dove into the relationships of the authors or the hosts and stuff like that. And it wasn't a real relationship, but might as well be.
Well, a lot of times when people listen to like shows or they stay consistent with like one host or something, you kind of learn so much that you feel like you know them a lot more than even if you hadn't spoken to them in person. And I think during those times, I even had the same thing where I mean, I'm not an audiobook guy, but podcasts, that's where I kind of really got involved in listening to them. And you just hear things, and you're like, where has this been all my life? Like, it took me this long to finally find these, but I think it's just like they say everyone has a show now. So it's like you're going to find something that you're wanting to learn. It's out there. You just got to find it.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Out of all those episodes in audiobook, is there one that kind of hits you like, wow, I learned a lot, or I learned something new about me listening to these?
All of them.
Well, that's fine, because that's so true.
Yeah, I came from a really different position than I'm in now, as far as like how I see the world, the lens I view the world through, like how I look at relationships, the value I place on relationships. That's more valuable than finance or money or there's so much that like it's hard for me to not get too excited, overly excited. There was a nonprofit I found at the beginning, and they of course went virtual with coronavirus or whatever, COVID. Say all the keywords here, sorry. Make sure that we really get fact checked. So that group, they were super cool. Like I told them up front, like, this is where I'm at, this is my background, and nobody batted an eye. They were like, yeah, you can do whatever you want, man. Just if you're willing to put the work in, get educated, and like really, every day go after it, you're gonna get it. And I'd never had anybody tell me that, and so now here's this like self-worth or self-confidence or whatever coming from them, and so I didn't have anything to offer them, like from the position I was at, like donate money, whatever. I had time and I had experience, and this is why I don't regret the way that things have happened. It's hard to relate to somebody getting out of prison if you've never been to prison, especially a younger person, or getting in trouble with the law or whatever, or with drug addiction. My ability to relate to and communicate with people from similar backgrounds as me, that's where I found that this nonprofit was designed to help youth get out of poverty, and like create excellent lives and like make change. But they weren't in that recovery space. They were in the incarceration space, but not its own like subgroup or anything. It's kind of a general thing. Like it's good for everybody to work on yourself and learn some new skills. So Um, I get so far off track, or there's so much I leave out in the midst of leaving out so much stuff, because I got stories for days, as you can imagine, with my lifestyle. Yeah, that's just that was the relationships there, that, like, via Zoom, stuff like that. That's where I found a purpose or sustainability. I don't know.
Talk about the creation of One Life Rediscover Mastermind. How did that concept come about, and what's the big mission with it?
Yeah, some of it's a little contrary to normal, like a traditional recovery and what people would think of with like AA or NA. And I love that stuff. I am super grateful for its existence. That's where I got my foundation. But the parts that are missing, I think, is that, like, economic resources. Like, I find it easier to get over a bad day when I can pay all my bills, and I have a feel like I'm excited about the future, as far as knowing 5 years from now it's unlikely that I'll be struggling financially. And with that comes the ability to do more things that you enjoy, or the freaking ability to help people in ways that, like, I never saw possible before. So, now I have tenants. I'm trying to teach all my tenants, like, how to get their credit scores up. Like, oh, you got to get a secured credit card. You need to be doing this, and this. Check this out. There's all kinds of resources online. Like, so not just like providing like good housing, but then also, like, offering that stuff to them to help them get their stuff together. Like, I let one dude terminate a lease because he bought a house. He got his credit score up, got a better job, and was like, "Will you listen to me?" And I was like, "I'm not going to, penalize you for it. Like, congratulations." He was having a baby and all this other stuff. So the mastermind group came from me wanting to serve the community, or the demographic that I came from: incarcerated, addicted, homeless, like, and give them the basic level financial education of, like, what's possible. Because I didn't know what was possible with money. I didn't know how money truly worked. I didn't know how leverage worked. I didn't know. We have we like wildlife. We have a clock that on the hour is a different bird. I don't have an endangered bird locked in a cage. So anyways, that's what I was, like, really passionate about. Like, I discovered this for myself, and I really wanted to share it with people. And the people who helped me a lot, this was my way to get back to them. So, like, I paid for, the whatever materials, or, like, there's like let's say a fee to get into the group, the mastermind group. There's plenty of people that are willing to sponsor other people through it, and, like, I've done it. I would do it in a heartbeat. This is, like, horrible for any profit model, but it's a nonprofit, so doesn't matter. But, like, they get a one life roadmap, and it's vision, relationship, finance, and wellness. Or, one's out of order there, but we won't backtrack. Where you go through and you teach these people the core four and these pillars of, setting goals, how to set goals, how to judge the relationships in your life, how to, create your own personal board of directors. And that's kind of like we talked about with the authors or other podcast hosts, or what would these people do? And, for me, it would be maybe like Napoleon Hill for not goal setting, but, like, my overall direction in life. Like, he has a book called Outwitting the Devil. I don't know if you've read that. It's insane. It's like, you have to brace yourself for that book. It's crazy. There's a thing called drifting, and, like, whenever I catch myself drifting or things like that, Um, and then, the financial aspect of like, a lot of people in situations like I was in, it's like credit doesn't matter as much as just getting the paycheck and paying your bills. Well, like, no, it does. It matters a ton because it gives you all these other options. It's expanding your options. It's expanding what you can do. And then getting educated and learning, whatever. I can get like that. I'm trying so hard to rein myself in on that one. And then the wellness aspect, like taking care of your physical body, mentally, making sure your mental health stuff, like setting these KPIs, like these key performance indicators. That's not a one life thing. It's just I think it's actually like a real estate thing, but setting these KPIs for like, where am I with my mental health? What are the things that alert me to? Like I'm not normally this way. Having the relationships for people to keep that in balance. And then just like spiritually, emotionally, all that stuff, man. But working on yourself, I really like the example of I was on a plane to Austin to work with some guys in rehab down there and teach them some skills. And the airline attendant, she says, in case of whatever, we lose oxygen, masks will drop down. Put your mask on first before putting masks on your children or anyone else. And I really strong, like that hit me really hard. I'm like, that's it. If I can't get I'll cuss one time. If I can't get my shit together, who the hell else can I help? It sounds selfish and it sounds whatever, but it's not in the long run, as long as your intention is to help others, and you do use what you gain to help others. So One Life Mastermind became a thing. So
when these individuals come to you, do you feel that they can connect with you because you've gone through it and you've rise to the challenge than someone who is teaching the same exact thing, but they have not gone through the same stuff as you have?
Yeah, and like everybody has their own struggles, and everybody's bottom is different in recovery. You'll hear that, and but there's some people that like their bottom was pretty savage compared to other people. Some people like would have got woke up at 15 with adult charges for drug trafficking. They'd be like, whoa, that's serious. And some of us need to just run that to the max until we get out of prison and sleep in abandoned houses. And so, yeah, there's definitely something to that. And like that, I feel that it's really important to be able to connect with people on that level, to make sure that I think it's real easy to feel like a victim of your circumstances or of, take that victimhood mentality or whatever. So I try to be a good example in that fashion. I'm not like, whatever, balling financially. I'm good at building stuff. So like, it looks cool. Chalkboard, it's not that cool. 10 minutes, it's paint. I do have my golden doodle, but I traded a job for him. I did some work for him. So no, but like showing people these alternatives to alternatives, or exposing them to new ideas or new ways to like not just stop when they hit an obstacle. Like there's a way around it, whether it's over it, under it, through it, whatever. I'm really good at that, and that's what I try to pass on to the people with very similar circumstances to my own or my past.
Just what you just said, I always compare it to an obstacle course. Think about those inflatable obstacle course. People think there's only one way to really get through it, but you can go in so many different directions, but you can still accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish. You can accomplish that course as long as you get to the end. So you hit it right on the nose, where you teach them different avenues, different ways to get to where they want. And I think a lot of people that are listening are going to definitely take that, because they might have this goal that they're wanting, but they just don't know how to get there, or they feel that, oh, there's no straight path. I have to take the back roads to get there. And I kind of view the same way in mine. Like I went to college for sports management, but I'm not in a sports job. But my eventual goal is to get to sports. But I'm taking all these back roads and building skill sets to eventually get there. But it's all about the mental. And I think we talked about that quite a bit, is where it's how you take it mentally will affect how you act, how you basically go on to your task and things like that.
100%, man. Yeah, I mean, the harder things get, the less people like, and this is that entrepreneur stuff. The harder things get, like that's that weeds out the people that don't really want to, that don't want something as bad, or don't,
Yep.
like, so it's like when a lot of people get stuck, they look at it like, it's difficult, poor me. It's like, no, this is it. This is where I come in, I crush it. All these other people are going to give up at that point. Now I only have to worry about, and this, I don't mean to come from like this scarcity mindset of me versus them or whatever, but as far as building your own like determination, your own belief in yourself and things like that, the more of those obstacles you cross, the more momentum you gain, the more the easier the next one is, ultimately. So I had something to say prior to that. I've said so much.
So what does the future look like for you? What are you hoping to accomplish in the next few years, personally and professionally?
Is it 3 years?
A few years.
A few years. Okay.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of, yeah. I'll get out my 3 year. I'll get out my. Yeah, I'm kidding. That's what it was. Let me just hit on this really quick. Having that why, like Friedrich Nietzsche, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. When you have a why and you have a goal and you have a vision, it's a really easy processing system, or a really easy process or system to filter your actions through. Is this going to get me closer or farther from where I truly want to be, like where I took time to get away, and like, this is what I want out of life. So that's what I wanted to touch on. Now, where do I want to be in a few years? So I am 2 years and 4 months into like what I would call my entrepreneurship, like, or intentional entrepreneurship, of at least starting the education process intentionally. I'll keep this quick. I own this house. We don't have a mortgage on. I got it for 20 grand. Got lucky with the appreciation in the market, whatever. Our 2-year mark's coming up in 2 months. I can sell it with no capital gains tax for like a lot more than I paid for it, which that money has been freed up to be used for leverage for more investment properties. The next few years, by the end of this year, I'm trying to have enough passive income from rental properties that I've acquired with partners, or the ones now by myself, that my time freedom is that I'm financially free, as far as I don't have to give up my time to make enough money to pay the bills. And then I can spend so much more time like working with like the mastermind group, or a variation of that, or just giving back to communities that don't normally get this stuff. Like I think I really want to inspire younger people who have it hard already, and show them what they can do. So in the next few years, I want to be doing that with my kids, helping out or whatever. I want to be doing that with a good chunk of my time, that and salmon fishing.
Is it about to be salmon fishing season? Is there a season for that?
There's always a season. You just have to go and find it and like hunt them down. Dude, we've been to Alaska, Idaho, Colorado, New York, catch salmon now. Like I wish I could say that it was like tarpon or like or swordfish or something. it's not. Some of it's like literally just like what would you call that? A kid's game where like you drop the magnet in their mouth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like some of it's like fish harvesting or something, like, depending on where you're at. But I love to fish. I love nature, and yeah.
The final question I'll ask you, for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
Surround yourself with people who are actively doing it. Even if you can't physically surround yourself with them, listen to audiobooks based on it, listen to podcasts based on it, reach out and network with people via however forums, Facebook, whatever media, podcast guest, podcast host, anybody you can get a hold of that's actively doing what you want to do, or overcoming stuff or making progress. Is surrounding yourself with those people is freaking key. That's what I got.
Well, Sterling, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and being so open and sharing your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we're excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Thank you very much.